Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bubble Talk once again. Today, we actually have bubble tea. Yes, it's no longer a latte talk or coffee talk. It is an actual bubble tea. Today's bubble tea is organic oolong milk tea with no sugar. Yes, it's kind of boring. When you hit over 40, there's no sugar. So let's take a look and taste this organic oolong tea from Chateau. Oh, look, and on the top, look what they wrote for me. You can't really see it. It says, "Stay safe." Oh, either way. Oh, it's good to have some bubble tea. Just to let you guys know how big of a sacrifice we made for this. In lockdown, you can't really get bubble tea like at this time in the morning. So this was bought yesterday and put in the fridge. So yes, I am suffering. It is not fresh bubble tea. It is from yesterday, put in a fridge. The sacrifices we make for lockdown. Either way, sorry. We're going to talk about this week's Bubble Talk, which is dealing with uncertainty. So I hope that a lot of people, well, I'm sure right now, everyone is dealing with uncertainty because of these lockdowns, coronavirus, pandemic. You know the words that come into our head every day is like death toll, death rate, mortality rate, infection rate, epicenter, and these are all like words that trigger us into this uncertainty, right? And those of you in America, actually all around the world, another big thing that's happening is unemployment. A lot of people losing their jobs, and we're wondering, what do we do next? So what do we do now is we're going to take a look at how to deal with uncertainty. But first we have to understand is what is uncertainty, okay? So uncertainty is that feeling in your stomach, and a lot of us are feeling it right now, especially those who have families, those who just lost their jobs, those who are wondering, am I going to catch it next? And it's that feeling in your stomach where, before you choose your major, after you graduate from university, what should I do next? Like, what is my next step in life? Right now is, should I go to the grocery store or not? Am I going to keep my job or not? And these are all those feelings of uncertainty. And what uncertainty is, it's kind of that state of being where things are unknown or you're just not sure what's going to happen next. And this causes a lot of stress and anxiety in people. So because we're in the state of not knowing, I want to help everyone now to deal with this uncertainty. So let's talk about first is, how do you respond to uncertainty? Like, this is just regular human beings, psychologically, how do human beings respond to uncertainty? And of course, there's always two ways. It's either positive or negative. And you might think to yourself, is there a positive way to respond to this coronavirus, this pandemic, or to this uncertainty? And yes, there is, right? The first way is positive, which means what? When you face uncertainty, the positive reaction is you look at it as a challenge. And with this challenge, it stirs creativity, and you're trying to find newer methods to kind of overcome or deal with it. For example, now with the coronavirus, we see these viral videos of people, like even in Malaysia, like people just all of a sudden go onto their balcony and they start singing. And they have like a concert, and everyone is singing together. I saw in Hamburg, Germany, there's a part-time, a personal trainer. He walks out to the middle of the street, takes his music system with him. Everyone comes out to their balconies, and he does part-time training for everyone on the spot every day, right? Old people, young people together, they're just exercising together through this music. This is all creativity, right? And it is a positive way of dealing with it. Now, of course, the second way is the way that most people deal with, and this is more of a negative response. So how do we negatively respond to uncertainty? Well, some of you might be doing this, which is mood control. What's mood control? Mood control means you basically escape the mood, right? So if there's something that is right in front of you and it brings uncertainty, what do? You try to escape it. So some people will start binge watching Netflix. Some people go straight into social media and just stick on it for 3 to 4 hours a day, maybe 5, 7 hours a day, not being productive. And basically what it is it causes procrastination because you're avoiding that emotion, right? You don't deal with it, but you start doing other things, right, to try to escape the mood. And the second thing that we do is, well, there's multiple parts to it, but let's just say, I'll give you a great example of a positive one, because I know the negative ones are very negative. But let me give you a great example of a positive one first, right? It's a story in the Bible between this young boy. He's like 17 years old. His name was David. And he was fighting this giant at that time. His name was Goliath. And this comes from the book of 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 49. And what basically happens, you'll read here is, here's this giant warrior that's been going to war and in battle his entire life. And then there's a shepherd boy that comes in without any armor, without even a sword, but 5 rocks and a sling. And you think to yourself, it's like, what are you doing? Like, it's crazy that this guy is actually, even the king lets him go into a situation where you're fighting this great warrior with a sling and 5 rocks. But it's creative. Why? Because you can't get too close to this giant, Goliath, because he slayed so many people. So what does he do? He finds a new way and creatively kills him from afar. Right? So you see that there's a lot of situations like this in life too that we have to be able to respond in a positive way. Of course, like I said, negatively, we have mood control. Second thing we do is we kind of look at it, we have a response of incompetence. Like, it makes you feel like you can't do anything. So what do? You actually kind of like, it makes you feel like you're being threatened by that situation. Like, it's threatening to you because of this uncertainty. So, have you ever heard this before? Like, when people say, so what do you want me to do about it? What am I supposed to do? Well, what can I do? And this is when people start to feel incompetent. And there's this one story in the Bible that's very interesting. It's like that. It's in the book of Exodus, chapter 3, verse 11. It's actually Moses talking to God, and God's like, save your people. And you know what Moses says? Who am I? Who am I that I should talk to Pharaoh? He kind of looks at himself as very incompetent. And this is what human beings do a lot, is when we look at the situation in a very negative way, it's a threat to you as an individual. And one of the feelings we get is, I'm incompetent. So what can I do about it? I can't do anything about it. So imagine if you have the feeling, or you believe in your head you can't do anything about it. It basically means you're not going to do anything about it. Once again, it causes procrastination. Now, the last one of this is imposter syndrome, right? Imposter basically means that this uncertainty pops up at you, and you think to yourself, oh no, if I don't do it properly, people might think I'm not that as good as I really am, right? That feeling of, oh man, but what are people going to think? Because I'm so good at this, but then if I do bad, what are people going to think of me? And this is kind of that imposter syndrome. And what happens is the exact same thing is you procrastinate to give yourself an excuse why you did bad. So you purposely procrastinate. So if it doesn't turn out well, you can say, oh man, I didn't have enough time, so I did this all in 2 hours, right? So these are kind of how people respond. And we have to really understand is, yes, we do respond like this, but I'm telling you right now it's not about you're going to do this no matter what. I'm just telling you this is how people really respond. And what I want to teach you today about dealing with uncertainty is how can we properly deal with it? What's the proper mindset we need to have in order for us to get past this? So, next I want to talk about to you is what? Is understanding uncertainty. Now, what do you mean by understanding it? You got to think about this, guys. We actually kind of want uncertainty in life. And you're like, what? Since when do we want uncertainty in life? Uncertainty is terrible. Uncertainty is the worst thing. But actually, guys, you want uncertainty to a certain extent. And you're like, well, when? Okay, when you go to a movie, okay? When you go to a movie, haven't you ever had those crazy people that are always sitting next to you talking to you during the movie and they're like, watch out, don't go in there. Or they're like, hey, no. Oh, you know what? I bet you they're going to do this. Oh, I bet you he dies first. There's these people trying to predict what's going to happen next in the movie. But what happens? Do you enjoy the movie if every single part of the movie is absolutely predictable? If there's so much certainty in a movie, are you going to be sitting there like going, oh, this is such a great movie? Or do you look at a movie and you're like, no way, right? There's like this turning, like you think, no way. Like there's a movie I saw recently called Knives Out. Couldn't guess who the murderer was. I just couldn't. I'm just like, is it him? Is it her? Is it him? And in the end, you're like, whoa. And then what do we say? We're like, great movie. With movies, we don't want them predictable. You want it to be something beyond of what you thought. And then you look at it as a great movie. We kind of actually want predictability. Think about this. Elections, or you just took a test for your grade, like, what do you call it, that final test in high school to get into university, or whatever those tests you call it. Like there's SATs. In Canada, there's called provincials. In Malaysia, it's called A-levels. A-levels, right? Is there a final A-level test? No. Okay, forget it. But there's going to be these final tests, right? Now, in the end of the final test, how do you feel? You're like, oh my gosh, how did I do? How did I do? And you start thinking to yourself, oh please, I wish, I can't wait. And when you get the result and it's like a 95 and it's better than you expected, what kind of emotion comes through you? You're flooded with the emotion like, whoa, this is so great, man, I got a 95. And it's one of the greatest things. Now, can you imagine, like elections, like with Donald Trump's election in the US? It shocked everyone, right? There's like 51% of the population that were crying, crying in pain, and 49% crying in joy, right? And it's because it's uncertain. Because it's uncertain, it evokes an emotion, and it's something that gives you like an eventful life. And this is actually something we really want. But, however, even though we want uncertainty and we enjoy this uncertainty, it's only to a certain level. And this is something that I want you guys to understand too about uncertainty. Yes, we want uncertainty, but to a certain level. For instance, imagine there's no traffic laws and people can drive any way they want, anywhere. Anyway, park any way they want. Well, actually, in Malaysia, people do park any way they want. It's really weird. You guys just got to come and see. There's something called triple parking. I've never seen it or heard it before. It's the craziest thing ever. But either way, only Malaysians would understand this. Triple parking. Never heard of it until now. Either way, okay? So let's just say there's no laws and you don't have to, how certain would you want? Like, wouldn't you be scared to go out to drive? Like, everyone would want to be buying tanks. Because no one wants to get hurt, because you don't know where the car is going to come from, what side of the road to drive on. It is going to be crazy in your mind. It's chaos. So human beings, we do want some level of certainty, and that's why we have laws. Laws bring certainty to a certain level. Why? Because yes, the majority of the world is going to be, some of the world will be driving on the right, some on the left, but the vast majority, like 99.9%, are going to be following the law. And there's just very few people who don't follow that law. But the uncertainty is not enough for us to be scared to go out and drive, right? It's the same thing with criminal laws. Not everyone's going to follow the do not murder, do not steal, do not do these bad things. But the level of uncertainty is so low to the point we're not scared to go out for a walk or to go jogging or to go out and play sports. Right? We're not scared to go to the mall. It's because there is some level of uncertainty, right? Just some level of uncertainty, but it's just enough. Now, the question now is, what should you be certain of? To understand uncertainty, you have to understand one thing is, the only thing that is certain is that there is uncertainty. And that's something you have to digest into your mind is, yes, in life, the only thing that is certain is uncertainty. Which means that there's one thing that people try to do all the time, but it is a very bad mistake. And what is that? It is looking for the right one answer. We try to do this all the time. We're all at fault for this. It's like, haven't you guys ever been to a meeting at work or church or school, and it's like one person's just pushing one idea, and then other people are just trying to tear down the idea, and it almost looks like they know what the right answer is, right? They know what we can't do that. Why? Because what about this, and what about this, and what about this, and what about this? And basically, we're trying to get to a point of getting rid of all uncertainty. We're looking for one right answer where That's very, very highly unlikely. Why? Because the only certainty in life is things are uncertain. So let me give you this interesting research that was done in 1984 by a researcher named Philip Tetlock. Okay, and he worked for the National Research Council, and I believe this is in America, and he had access to world experts, people who studied and knew like these world situations. So what he started to do was he started this this crazy study. It took 20 years, okay? 20 years of asking world experts. And you know how many questions he asked the world experts? 27,450 questions in 20 years. He's asking over 280 world experts. And he asked them to predict the future. This is what the research is about, predicting the future, the uncertainty of the future. But can you predict it? And he's not asking regular people, he's asking world experts. 27,450 questions, like bam! You know, here's a situation in Russia. There's unrest. So you get three options. It's going to get better, it's going to get worse, or it's going to stay the same. So you choose one of those three options, and you give a probability. Like, yeah, you know what? I'm a world expert. 90%, 99%, it's going to go like this. And some people are going to be like, yeah, well, 40. I'm a world expert for 20 years, and I'd say it's going to be like this, about 40%. So he's asking over a 20-year span. After the 20 years and 27,450 questions, it took him 5 years to organize the data. 5 years, okay? So what is the result? The result is, as a whole, this research as a whole, it was no better than random. No, these are world experts, which means that you could get the same answer from asking a child, or, you know, like sometimes you see in sports, you'll ask an octopus to choose who's going to win, right? This is the crazy part is, the final result as a whole study was it was no better than random. They couldn't guess it. You have an exact same chance of asking a child of what's going to happen with this situation, this unrest in Russia or the wars in Afghanistan, and you'd have a similar shot at it by asking a child. So what does that mean? Well, I'm not going to talk about the whole picture because that's in general, as a whole, it was no better than random. But the interesting thing was, there were some people, some experts that were much better at predicting than others, like much better. So Philip Tetlock looked at this research and says, well, why are these, like some of these like people so much better at guessing than others? And there was this one major difference between the two. So it was about certainty. It was actually about certainty. So those who had higher certainty, like, you know what? Been a world expert, 99% this is going to happen this way. They were actually worse. And the people who were only 40% and lower in certainty, your guesses were you had a higher chance of guessing it right. Why? Through the research, they found that experts with less certainty, they looked at this and said, hey, experts with less certainty, they're the ones that understood they've been wrong before. They're much more humble, and they're those that craved new data and new information constantly. And even though they'll say the exact same thing, I've been an expert for 20 years, I only have a 40% chance, it's probably 40%. Why? Because I've been wrong before. And things change. So yeah, I'm not really sure, but probably there's a 40% chance, and these people, these experts, were higher in guessing the future. Now, what does that mean for us? It means you have to embrace. You have to embrace uncertainty. Let me show you a verse. It's Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 14. And Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 14 says, when times are good, be happy, but when times are bad, consider this. God has made the one as well as the other. Therefore, no one can discover anything about their future. The one certainty we have is we're not going to be certain about the future, and it's okay. It's okay. It doesn't say freak out. No one's going to know your future, so just freak out and run around naked and just do crazy things. No. It is something that is solid information, and a solid truth is you have to realize is we're not going to know it. Which means that it's not about freaking out. It's about embracing it, knowing, yeah, it might not happen this way, and it's okay. It might not happen this way, and it's okay. Now let me give you an example of someone who embraced uncertainty, okay? Guess who this person is. Can you guess who this person is? This person. 2 failed businesses, had a nervous breakdown, was bedridden for 6 months. He tried to get into legislature, got defeated. He tried to get into the Senate, got defeated twice. Tried to become the vice president, defeated again. But then, he became the president of the United States. And he's actually one of the most famous presidents. What's his name? Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln failed so much to the point. It was so uncertain. But can you imagine going from fail, nervous breakdown, fail. No, not even good enough for vice president. And then he becomes a president out of nowhere. One thing you have to embracing the uncertainty basically means that we have to understand is when things are uncertain, then a lot of times things are not going to work out, or you need to practice or understand what you're getting into before you become successful at it, because that's what uncertainty is. We're not sure how you become successful, but you got to try it out and you test it out, and you're going to make a lot of mistakes on the way, and it's okay. Why? It's a part of it. The thing that's worse is if everything was certain and you failed. That's worse. If you get all the answers to the test and you still fail the test, that's where the problems are. That's when you should actually feel more uncertainty, like, what the heck just happened? No. Because we are certain that things are uncertain, we have to realize that. You have to embrace it and know that, yeah, I actually don't know what things are going to turn out to be. Embrace it and understand it, and it's okay if it doesn't work out the first time. You see, this last thing I want to talk to you about is seeing the big picture. What does that mean? This last verse I'm going to talk to you about today is Matthew chapter 6, verse 34, and it says, "Don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Every day has enough trouble of its own." Now, why am I using this to say see the big picture? Because tomorrow is very short term. A lot of the times we are getting nervous, we are getting anxious, we're panicking, we're getting like these really terrible feelings inside because we're thinking very, very short term. You have to think very long term, big picture. What does that mean? This is the last thing I want to talk to you today is what? Has anyone, I'm sure everyone knows Netflix really well now. Netflix is probably your best friend. Okay? Now, in a 10-year span from the year 2010 to 2019, do you know what percentage Netflix has grown? Like if you were to buy a stock, that stock in those 10 years grew 4,224% in 10 years. But here's a problem. You think to yourself that, I should have got into it at this date in 2010 or 11. If I only came in early. Even though the total is 4,224%, in 2011, the stock dropped 79%. In 2012, it dropped 58%. 2014, it dropped 35%. 2015, it dropped 37%. 2018, it dropped 44%. Which means there's tons of great losses in between. But if you look at it only at the losses that are happening, what do people do? They panic. Oh my gosh, let's just sell everything, and they start panicking. But if you look at the overall growth of Netflix, it's during that span of 79%, 44%, 58% losses, they've grown 4,224%. And this is what we have to also realize about our lives too. You have to see the big picture, and we're going to take some losses along the way, but you have to see the big picture. The big picture is the most important part. And if you get your eyes off the big picture, then what happens? Then you start freaking out after every little thing. And then what happens? During this lockdown, a ton of you are going to start gaining weight from all the stress, right? So I hope that this helps out everyone. I want you guys not to freeze in the situations and start procrastinating and avoiding things, but understanding the big picture right? Understanding that it's not about the things that are happening in very, very short term, but if you guys embrace this uncertainty, what it allows you to do is, even though you have those feelings, you will realize these feelings will come and go, and you will keep your butt in that chair and continue to do your responsibility and the work that you need to do. And this is when we're going to overcome uncertainty. Of course, there are many other things that we can do to deal with uncertainty, but this is the major thing that I want to talk to you about today. So thank you so much for listening today. We're going to head and move on to question and answer.